acknowledge some issues up front, but I'll get to those in just a second. I do want to acknowledge that the Idaho Humanities Council sponsored tonight. If you're not familiar with the IHC, you should become so because they're amazing. They take great programming all over the state, and we're really fortunate that they are a sponsor for tonight and getting everyone to come out, along with the League of Women Voters in Moscow. So this is going to be super awkward, I can already tell. So my other acknowledgement, this is really just a chance for me to talk about Alice Paul. I love her a lot, to almost creepy levels. She's going to ignore this, that's my kid up there. In my house, Alice Paul is really, really high up there. We talk about her as Saint Alice, we canonized her. My second daughter, who's not here tonight, her middle name is Alice, after Alice Paul. My oldest daughter's middle name is Presley. So that's, if you know me at all, you would know what a huge compliment it is that we gave our second daughter Alice as a middle name, because Elvis is everything. So Alice is almost to Elvis's level. Not quite, but we won't tell our second daughter that just yet. So what I'm going to talk about tonight, I might need someone. That would be great. It's going to be really awkward. Oh, you don't have to sit on the floor. That's silly. We can.
Okay, but it's this button right here?
It's a really the next on the arrows. Okay. So we're going to talk about women's voting rights, but women's voting rights in general, are just linked inextricably to civil rights. And so I'm not going to read this, I'm just going to assume that you can all read this behind me, but civil rights are just a huge part of who we are as a nation, as people. They're these undeniable rights, and I should put undeniable in quotation marks because we have denied them to people a lot in our history. So this is just the story of one group's struggle to get some rights. They do it through a variety of ways. Largely through protests. That's really where we get women getting the right to vote, and sometimes in ways that we're seen as too ladylike. We're really proud of our rights in the United States. We've spelled them out really specifically. If you look at the first 10 amendments to the Constitution, we've got those rights spelled out. I feel like I want to ding like the old things. No, that's right, that's good, that's what I wanted. But if you read through that Bill of Rights, you'll see that not everyone was protected under them. If we look through, there's not rights protected for men without property, for African Americans, and for women. There's other groups too, but those are kind of the big three for those. And this is a part of who we were from when we first started. Not everyone had equal rights. Not everyone had an equal voice in the government. Are we having Sue do it? Okay, this is a team effort. So when we first start as a nation, not everyone has the right to vote. That's right. We'll go back. There we go. We have the qualified voters. These are white men with property. So most of you in the room, if not all of you, would not be voting. So if you didn't have property, and different states define that differently, if you're a woman, so half the population, or if you were not white, you're not going to have those rights. Our founding fathers thought that it would lead to chaos if everyone had the right to vote. They wanted it to just be specific groups, people who were qualified to do this. So this is our second president saying this. Later on in the century, we'll see different groups getting their rights to vote. The Civil War ushers in, on paper, African American men getting the right to vote. Getting different civil rights, but it's going to take a little bit longer for other groups. And for women in the Revolutionary War, so we'll just do a little bit of background. Why did we fight the Revolutionary War? This is audience participation. Why did we fight the Revolutionary War? Independence?
No.
No taxation without representation, which means a voice in your government, right? So as women are looking around in the Revolutionary War, the hypocrisy is there from the very beginning. And women were active participants in the war in a variety of ways. Whether they were camp followers, taking care of the soldiers, going from battle to battle as wives, as mothers, as sisters, as daughters. Whether they're actually out there fighting. sometimes disguising themselves as men, sometimes taking up where their husbands let off. They were running the farms, the plantations, and the businesses back home. They felt that they had equal voice in this revolution, and then to be told at the end, not for you, they could see the problems with that. And in fact, in a pretty famous exchange of letters between Abigail Adams and John Adams, again, who becomes our second president, she tells him, don't forget about us. If you ignore us, there might be problems. How are we expected to obey the laws, to pay our taxes? All those same things that we had problems with going into the revolution, if you deny them to us. So in the early years, we had to find ways to comfort women. Okay, you can't vote, you're still going to be active parts of the nation. People start talking about this idea of Republican motherhood. That's going to be women's roles. You're going to raise up the next generation of virtuous citizens. It's an important job. Teach them right from wrong. Teach them how to be good citizens. And there's ideas that women are the gentler sex, the more pure sex, that they're going to be able to do this the best. It leads them in the first half of the 19th century to get involved in a variety of reform movements. And that's really the hallmark of the 19th century. Whether it's prison reform, penitentiary reform, temperance, or the prohibition ladies who went even further, or abolitionists. They're involved in all these reform movements, cleaning up society. I was seen as a natural extension of what they did in their homes. I'm going to have you go back for just a second, sorry. For the abolitionists, women start to attend lectures, listening to things, and they start to give lectures, whether they were white women or there were some African-American women, some who had run away, who were also giving the speeches. William Lloyd Garrison started the American Anti-Slavery Society, and he invited women to participate. It didn't go over well with everyone. In 1839, about 30% of his membership quit because women were voicing things at their national convention. They stood up, there were about 1,000 people, 300 of them walked out. So imagine sitting there as a woman, fighting for something so basic, we're trying to end slavery, and then finding out they don't accept us. Garrison, I'm going to have you go back for 1 second, to his credit said, well, that clears up some leadership space. And he started to appoint more women into leadership positions, including this woman, Lucretia Mott. The next year, he sent her to London for a worldwide abolition conference. She goes there. She's full of energy. She's full of passion. She's going to fight to abolish slavery. And this is the group. So then the next one, it's zoomed in on it. This is the group.
Wow, look at all those ladies.
Yeah. So I looked at that and I joked to my husband. I was like, it's a hearing on women's health care. That's what we're saying. There are some women. You can look. There's a few. And there's a few black people in there too. The women who are drawn in, their husbands were most likely outrageously wealthy or outrageously influential. They couldn't really say no. The rest of the women, they said, you go sit over there. They were segregated out and they were told they could not participate in the conference. So this is where Mott met Elizabeth Cady Stanton. They started talking. How can we fight for other people's rights if we don't have rights of our own? How can we try to be a voice for other people when we don't have any voices? And they spent the next few years talking back and forth, and they landed on the idea, we can't do anything if we don't have the right to vote. Later on in the decade, in 1848, they decided to hold a convention in Stanton's hometown, Seneca Falls, New York. This is the first National Women's Convention. About 100 people were there, reform-minded people. Frederick Douglass was there, men and women.